welcome to CrossTalk. My name is Kevin Tocci. I will be your host for the next 30 minutes. Now, as you know, this particular show, we use it as a vehicle to drive the information to you from the two communities that we serve, Whitman and Hanson. And the topics, there's a variety of topics that we discuss here, whether it's upcoming events, issues, things about the community. Maybe it might be election coverage, or even feature some of the stakeholders in the two communities today. Joining us is the chair of the Hanson Board of Selectmen, Laura FitzGerald-Kemmett. Welcome back to the program. Good to see you.
Thanks, Kevin. Good to see you, too.
How are you?
Doing well.
Madam Chair.
Yep.
How is the state of the Hanson Board of Selectmen these days?
I can only give my perspective on that, but
One of five.
It's a good group to work with. I think everybody has different strengths, and together it's a strong board. We don't always agree, but I think that's actually healthy. And so, we enjoy working with one another, and we're getting a lot done. So I'd say the State of the Union is pretty strong, pretty good. Yeah.
How's the transition been for you to be in the leadership role, to be the chair?
Well, right out of the gate, we did have a bit of controversy. About a week and a half in, we had the situation with our prior town administrator. So that was baptism by blood, if you will. Mm-hmm. But aside from that, the transition's been fairly smooth. Being a chairman isn't my first time being a chair. It's the first time being the chair of the Board of Selectmen. Mm-hmm. But I'm comfortable in leadership roles, and I was really grateful and humbled by the fact that the guys nominated me. So I'm happy to be doing it. I'm enjoying it, and I think we're moving the needle forward. So
it's an interesting dynamic. I've sat through many meetings as of late. And I see that there is a really good working relationship, and it depends. Boards vary. It's almost like sports teams.
Yep.
Every year it's different. When there's small changes or things happen, you see that change. But I feel that there's a nice symbiotic relationship that's going on between the five of you.
I agree. There's a camaraderie there. We try to support each other, and I think I've found that we listen to each other, because what Matt may have a perspective on, or Wes has a different perspective, and I'm constantly learning new things, or like a different way of looking at it, and I think that's important, and I feel that the rest of the guys are pretty open to listening to other people's perspectives, so I'm enjoying it a lot. I really am.
So since the spring, what have been the board's top priorities?
Our number one priority currently is to find our long-term town administrator. We've been fortunate in that the lovely and talented Mary Marini has agreed to step in as, yet again, the interim town administrator. But Mary has plans to retire. We're going to honor those plans, and so we need to find a long-term replacement. In the interim, we're also working on finding a replacement for her. And we fortunately checked that box off on Tuesday night, and we've got Greer Getson, who will be starting hopefully by shortly after Labor Day, to replace Mary, and then that will allow Mary to train her, get a good solid foundation for the office and the administrative position, and while we're simultaneously working on finding a replacement for our town administrator. So that's job one. I'd say, not necessarily in order of importance, McQuon, dealing with that. We've got Keller Williams currently RFPing, working on seeing if they can attract a developer there to reuse the building and potentially create senior housing. If that doesn't fall through, town meeting has passed funding for us to tear it down, but we really want to see if there's a way to reuse. It's really difficult in the day and age that we're in now to reuse these buildings. It's seldom as economically feasible to reuse, it's usually much cheaper to just tear it down, haul it off, and start from square one. But that kind of goes against my fiber, and I'm trying with every bit of my being to see if we can possibly preserve that. So that's another thing that we've got going on. And then economic development is really huge. And a lot of these things are happening behind the scenes. We don't really even talk about them a lot at selectmen's meetings because we're not all working on them, or we may have pieces of them, or there's really just nothing worthy of talking about it at the agenda. It's a lot of fits and starts and discussions and conversations and meetings, but the economic development one is one in particular. Last town meeting, we appropriated money for a study, and we had a gentleman come and do an economic development study. We will be going over that at next week, the August 27th Board of Selectmen's meeting. In conjunction with that, we've had a couple of things going on. We also designated that Main Street area as an economic target area, which allows us to, as a town, to look at getting grants and maybe even low percent funding loans for the folks that are doing business there. So not the town taking out the loan, but allowing the folks who own it to get some loans to maybe make some much needed improvements. And so we've got all of that going along, and we've got some movement there. Yesterday I was with our building inspector, Bob Curran, and our planning woman, Deb Petty, and then Mary Marini, our interim town administrator, and we were walking through the 1101 Main Street, which is the long building sort of in the center of everything that's going.
Is that formerly the Priority Music?
That partially, and it's really sort of from where that Teleconnectors building is all up until that single standing white building, that whole, the brick and the enormous property, 79,000 square feet.
Goodness. Huge.
Mind-boggling. You can't even wrap your mind around how large it is. And it was very impressive because this is really main part of our economic development is that little chunk right there. How do we get that looking better? How do we get it so that when people are driving by, they're not shaking their heads or saying, what the heck's going on there? And I was really thrilled when we went in the building to see how much progress and how much work Mr. Marangello has put into that building. And I even commented to him to that effect, but I also said, a lot of people feel like things aren't moving forward here because they're judging it by the outer shell of the building. Right. But if you took a walk in there, and I really honestly wish I had had a body cam or something because it was impressive. He's done all kinds of structural work with the roof, with the floors, he's done beams, he's put in sprinkler systems. So I take my hat off to Jerry Thompson and Robbie O'Brien of the fire department for insisting in a helpful but insistent way that he comply with fire code, and similarly with Mr. Curran, our building inspector, being helpful but insistent that the building be brought into compliance. And I'm happy to say that it's well on its way there. So in speaking with him, he's got a lot of businesses already in there. And we were able to tour through and visit some of them. They were very gracious. But he's really moving towards the area towards the end that he's just finished. And you may, if you drive by, you'll see some windows have been put in there and that type of thing. And he's going to do some siding.
He's done it over the past couple of weeks.
Yes,
I've watched. I've driven by him a number of times.
That section there, he's really thinking he's going to try to attract some stores, that type of a thing. And that certainly works dovetail with our economic development plan, is to attract a mixed use there, to get some stores and potentially some housing. He is approved for up to 23 units of housing, but at this point he's not prepared to do that. He may do that up the road. But we are looking at potentially some of the other buildings along that strip just prior to what he owns, potentially have been approved for housing, at least the Teleconnectors building has been. So we may see some movement with housing there, and ultimately that whole area may become a mixed-use area, which is healthy. It's good. We need that, and it would be great to attract some businesses there too. So that's a main focus, and it's something I've been spending a lot of my time on, as has Mary, as has the town planner, with Old Colony Planning Council and various other people, David Soper, our state representative. So there's been a host of people sort of helping with that. So
I don't even know if I should go into talking about the selectmen working collectively to compile a list of goals, because to me, it sounds a lot of what you just mentioned would be some of the top goals of the board. Would that be an accurate assessment?
Yes, I think so. The way we came up with those goals, it was very highly scientific, Kevin. We brainstormed at the meeting, because you, of course, can't discuss this stuff, without violating open meeting laws.
Right.
At the meeting, I believe Mary had sent an email to us prior to the meeting where we were discussing it, saying, "Come prepared with your list of goals." Well, everybody had various goals, and a lot of them were duplicative, because obviously economic development, we're all on board with that. Becoming a greener, community, and revitalizing that energy committee, which allows us to get some grants that we've missed out on in the past, was universally a goal that we didn't talk about prior to that, but we all had. So that's how we kind of put that list together. I may have or may not have gone a little more overboard and done a long list. There's additional things on there, but those are the main things. I mean, some of the other things that we're looking at, one of my goals was figure out what we're going to do in terms of our seniors. They're crammed into that library, that space off of the library now.
Multi-use center, yeah.
And they would never complain. They make do with what they have been given, and they're very grateful for it. But when you visit that building during the day, and they've got the folks that need a little more TLC because they're there for an assisted living type of assisted day program. And then you've got the folks who are functioning and living on their own, all co-located in that one relatively small area. You have to ask yourself, could we do a little bit better for these guys? And I think we can. So one of the things we did at our last town meeting was, again, we funded a study, which should be concluding relatively soon, about what are the needs for the seniors, what could we do for the seniors. And one of the things we looked at was, could we possibly reuse a portion of McQuon for that? Ran into some logistical issues, because it's just not as easy as it seems. You've got a lot of code issues, which is why McQuon was being shuttered, ADA compliance, fire safety, and that type of stuff. And when you've got a change of use from it being educational to now being for the seniors, all of those things that were grandfathered in get triggered. So we tried looking at that, not saying that there may not be a component of that in the senior housing that we're hoping Keller Williams can pull off. So TBD on that, but we are still working on that.
But hopefully maybe get a standalone.
Yeah, what's
for
clear is the library needs more room and the seniors need a different space. So either the seniors are going to probably end up taking over the library, and the library will build something else, or the seniors will get a chunk of that, or we're even maybe looking at the front part of the building where the food pantry is, to see if that's feasible. You've got some ADA issues there, but it's actually quite sizable. It's bigger than people may imagine. And it's not being used right now. There'd be some money to, again, bring it up to code and everything else, but it's got some potential. So we're kind of exploring a few different avenues, but it all starts with the consultant speaking to the seniors and speaking to Mary Collins about what are your needs, and then trying to find out, do we have an existing space or do we need a new space to help support that? And it's a growing population. Our population in Hanson is aging. And people are staying here. So we really need to address that.
So that part of the building you're talking about over by the food pantry, is that the extension service building?
It's exactly right where they used to be, yep.
Because it's on the list. I want to make sure that I don't mention that again and be redundant, because we don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But staying on that piece of property, what's going on in regards to one of the things that's on here is as far as the reuse of the county hospital property. How's that going along?
Well, it's going pretty well. And the committee is extremely committed. They're meeting on a regular basis. They had a little bit of a false start with the consultant that they hired. Really wasn't going in the direction that they wanted. So they've had to now hire somebody else to do more precise renderings on what they're going to do on the property. So they're not really ready for prime time yet. I had been hoping that they'd have an article on this town warrant, but it's just not going to happen, and they don't want to push the envelope. They've spent enough time and they've been diligent enough that they don't want to be hasty at this point in the process. So I think we'll probably see something on the October warrant and maybe get a little bit more detail about what they're planning on doing up there in the interim.
Talk to me a little bit about town buildings and capital items and doing a little bit of a status update on those.
So that is one of our goals. It's been, historically, we have done a very, very poor job of maintaining our buildings. Not laying blame anywhere, but the process has failed. And so one of the things that we're clear about as a board, and we've discussed several times, is we need to get a list of the buildings and the condition that they're in, and then we need to get the resources to address it, because it does no good to know that the buildings are in disrepair and then you're not addressing them. Right. It's actually torture to just know, well, these buildings are in disrepair and they're going to just continue being that way. So one of the things we've discussed, and we have to drill down a little bit further on with the facility, is getting a facilities director and a department. And the way that we've thought about this is we will probably, each department has a little bit of a facilities budget, so we may have to pull a little bit from each of those, consolidate. We also have a position that we had funded for Camp Kiwanee, probably take that position, and instead of just having a single vision on Camp Kiwanee, have it apply to everything. So we are fortunate in that we've got a Camp Kiwanee inventory. We know what needs to be worked on there, because that group has done a very thorough job. The Recreation Commission has been thorough, and they've vetted that. And we've got an old study that's four or 5 years old that looks at the general condition of the rest of the buildings. We'll probably consolidate those, refresh the 2015 study, and then when we've got that facilities director in place and that group, we'll have to prioritize, reprioritize, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a process, but we've started it, we're having the conversation, and conceptually everybody's on board.
So we get an upcoming hearing in September in regards to a cell tower. What's your thoughts in regards to maybe that might be a box that's checked off coming into the month?
I really hope it is. That's outside of my sphere of influence. It is the Zoning Board of Appeals that will be having the hearing and making the final determination. But we feel comfortable as a board that that location is a pretty good location. It's in the woods, it's behind the school, it's outside of the fall zone, et cetera, et cetera. The abutters have been notified. They've definitely had hearings as they're required to do. I'm hoping that in September that we'll get the final, go ahead for that. We were sort of bullish, hoping it might have been sealed up and done by the spring, but that might have been overly optimistic. So now we're going for the fall.
Okay. Outreach to the residents. What do you when you put that on the list? What do you mean that can be such a broad item? What do you mean by that?
Well, one of the things that is really dismaying to me is if I talk to people and I'll say, well, light control building or the blah 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 or whatever it is that we're talking about, and people just don't know, and so. Part of it is, yes, do each of us have a responsibility to become informed consumers and citizens and look at the website, maybe look at at Whitman Hanson Cable Access, replays of meetings, look at agendas and all of that type of stuff, yes. But realistically, we're busy, right? And people have to prioritize what they're able to spend their time on. I think that it serves everybody well if we have informed citizens, if people know what's going on, because maybe I'm being naive, but I think the more people know, the more likely they are to be engaged and want to be involved. And then we're going to have a town where everybody feels as though they've got a say and they're representative and we're inclusive. So outreach could be a Facebook page, which I'm gunning for. Probably limiting comments for obvious reasons, but gunning to at least get the information out there. Having our town administrator, once we hire that person, do some periodic updates on cable, doing maybe some little features in our local newspaper, that type of a thing. So just updating our website, maybe doing some YouTube videos on how does town meeting work, how does, anything, if I get an abutters notice, what happens, what should I do? Those types of things, because I remember not that long ago being a person who didn't understand how it all worked, and it's very overwhelming and it's very intimidating, and I want to try to eliminate that wherever possible. So that's kind of where we're coming from on that.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that. Is nowadays it's goodness if our kids had to do things the way we did them 30 years ago.
Right.
But nowadays, there's a video for everything on YouTube, and there is availability. And again, you have with enhanced community access. But you're right, is using video and using the different tools that you had before you, like social media,
Yep.
doing it in a controlled manner where it's you're putting out the positive information, putting out the information. I think it's bravo. It's a matter of though making sure you can get all the key people to be involved with this. Would you ever consider maybe assembling an information committee, per se?
I'm loath to create yet another committee that we have to recruit people on. You are there when we say we still have openings on the 200th, yada, yada, yada.
Yep.
But that seems like that's a fair suggestion. And I think that's something that I definitely, if it seemed like we had enough people that were interested, I certainly would. Because what I want to avoid is having social media keyboard warriors be the source for people's info. Because a lot of times, I have to go like, that's so inaccurate, but I can't get into it with every person that's posting rumors that they've heard or whatever. So I think the way to do that is get the right information out and get it timely and get it to people, where they need it.
Yeah, I mean, social media has become the digital water cooler where people, that's where they get their information a lot of times. Sometimes I don't like saying this, but sometimes folks will take it as gospel.
They absolutely do.
And that's okay. We're all built differently. We
Yeah.
all comprehend differently. But it doesn't make it easier for anybody else who is in the know and go, I don't think that's right.
Yeah.
And it's hard to be out there. But I applaud you on the effort to at least put that out there, so to speak, lead them to where the information is, and then it's up to them to be able to press the button to watch the video or see the information.
We can do better, and we should. Yeah.
Your list, you had mentioned, you do have quite the list here. One of the lists so happens to be, one of the things that intrigued me was to work with the boards, the appointed boards and committees, to have them to establish priorities.
Yes, and so I've been speaking to Mary on Tuesday. It's clear we have made no inroads on that at all, but I'm pretty hopeful that when we get our new town administrator, that's one of the things I want to have them work on. And my thought process on that is, it's so easy when we're in these roles to be reactive, because there's a lot being thrown at us, and you've got this you got to vote on this one's got a a need or a funding need, da da da. And the boards and the committees are the same way. But I firmly believe, both personally and professionally, that it's important to set goals and just chug along towards achieving the vision. If you don't have the goals, then you're not going to be moving in that direction. If you have the goals, you can periodically revisit, say, are those still our goals? Are we making any movement towards those goals? And I'd really like to see the boards and committees doing that. And some of them may have them, and we may just not be aware of them, but I'd like to formalize it a little bit.
Yeah, so how often do you feel that not only your board, but other boards should revisit their goals? Should it be an annual thing?
At least every 6 months.
Okay.
At least every 6 months.
And they provide updates?
Yes, yeah. And I don't want to over formalize anything. I really don't like to kill an ant with a cannon, but I'd just like to know that people are thinking about it, that they're being thoughtful, that they're saying, this is where we're going to put our energy when we have excess energy and we're not doing the day-to-day blocking and tackling that we've got to do. We're putting our energy in this direction, whether it's transparency, communication, or like, for instance, like conservation. One of the things I know that they want to do, and they haven't had the resources because they haven't had a conservation agent, is get the word out about some of the trails and, the open space that we've got so people can enjoy it, right? Because it's taxpayers paid for it, and it's one of the benefits of living in a town like Hanson. We've got all of that open space. I'd like to see that be, for instance, one of their goals, and I'm sure it will be. But we just need to kind of move that in that direction.
You're not going to believe this. We got less than 5 minutes left.
Wow, okay.
I mean, time flies when you're having fun. Anything that we haven't touched upon in regards to any updates with the Board of Selectmen and the goals that you
I'd
reviewed?
say one that we didn't talk about that we did discuss on Tuesday night is we've got an initiative, it isn't completed yet, for some online reporting for the highway folks, so if you're driving by, you see a pothole or something, like that. We're exploring doing that. Of course, we'll work with the highway guys to make sure that it's something that's palatable to them. But that same functionality is going to allow us to have employees report if they've got IT issues. So that's a positive. And then additionally, when we move towards that model of a facilities department, it will also allow people around town, mostly employees, to say, hey, this door needs that, or the paint is peeling on such and such. So then we can consolidate and we can figure out what's our response time on these things. Where are we having problems? Like for IT, do we need to replace some computers because all of those that we bought that year are, having issues? Or facilities management, it looks like we've got a lot of rotting material down at Camp Kiwanee. Let's focus on that. So that's another initiative that we've got going on.
So I'm going to allow you, we've got 3 minutes left, or we'll go a little bit long if we need to. But I want to give you an opportunity to do a little bit of a public service announcement, because you don't only wear the hat of an elected official, but you also volunteer to be on other committees. And there's a committee that you're on that's celebrating the anniversary of the town.
Yep.
And we'll do an extended conversation about it, but if you could, tell the folks about a fun night coming up later on September to help raise some money.
Okay, great. Yeah, thanks. So we've got a Monte Carlo night, and it's not money gambling. I have to clarify that, or poor Chief Mix will be, having a heart attack. Thinking that I'm saying that we're gambling. It is gambling, but the prizes are gift baskets, gift certificates, that type of thing. So of a monetary value, but not money. And we'll be having that at Meadowbrook on September 28th.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, and Meadowbrook has very graciously, and they're amazing, they've graciously agreed to provide us the room for no cost, and they're huge
Function room is
community
fantastic.
supporters. They're
Yep.
fantastic. So we'll be doing that. That is one of my favorite type of events, in that it's a whole bunch of different groups coming together for the community. So we've got the 200th Anniversary Committee, Kiwanis, and we've got the Hanson Business Network. So all of those folks are going to be coming together to bring the event to fruition, and the proceeds of that are going to be used to defray the costs of the 2020 activities. And I think a lot of people may not be aware of how many activities we've got planned, and I actually do have Josh Singer and Audrey Flanagan coming to next Tuesday, the 27th, the Selectmen's meetings to kind of talk about that, so people can frame what type of activities. But our goal as the 200th Anniversary Committee is to make sure that cost isn't going to be prohibitive for people to attend. We want everybody in town to be able to attend the events. We don't want to price anybody out. So the fundraiser is going to help towards that goal. We'll have some other fundraisers, but that's our first official kickoff. So that's the 28th of September, and you'll hear and see more about it, probably to the point of obnoxiousness.
Is there a website that you know of?
You can go on the Hanson 200th Facebook page, and there's information about it on there.
Okay,
So,
excellent.
yeah.
I want to thank you for coming in.
Thank you for
and
having
joining
me.
me.
Thank you.
We'll have to have you back in, chat more. And we want to thank you for tuning in. And again, it's important for you to be involved with a program like this. If there are folks that you want to hear conversations about, or if there's information you feel that we can help share, info@whca.tv, and share your idea. Hey, maybe you'd like to sit in this chair and discuss some of the topics and issues that are going on in the community. info@whca.tv. And until next time, have a great day.